So we'll move on to WTO agreements. So we'll just discuss some of the important ones and then we'll go into some current updates with respect to WTO. So the first one we'll do is agreement on agriculture. So as I told you, WTO has within it signed several agreements, almost 60 agreements are there. One of them being agreement on agriculture. Okay, so let's try to address all these points that is over here. So first one is it is applicable to what? It is applicable to agricultural commodities as well as processed commodities from agriculture. Processed commodities. Matlab commodities derived from agricultural products. So like cheese, chips, ketchup, things like that, processed meat or anything. So it not only includes agriculture, but agricultural derived products. Okay, that means both primary as well as secondary manufactured products from agricultural products. Okay, so it includes even meat. Okay, it includes even the meat, milk, everything. It does not include fish. It also does not include forest products. It does not include forest products. So fishery, fish and fish related products, forest and forest related products are exempted, are not part of this agreement on agriculture. So there is another agreement which is under negotiation called as non-agricultural market access, NAMA. Non-agricultural market access. So that fish and forest products are being discussed there. Now, agreement on agriculture, this was part of the original negotiation of WTO, that is your Uruguay round. So it came into existence right from 1995 when WTO came into force. So this agreement on agriculture has three pillars. Agreement on agriculture has got three pillars, very important for you to understand. So what does this agriculture agreement talks about? If you want to just generally understand based on the principle, what is the main objective? Open trade, predictable trade. Yes, then most nation favored and all that, equal treatment, no discrimination, and LDC. So the same thing when we apply here, what does the agreement on agriculture would want to do? It wants to reduce the tariff and eliminate the non-tariff barriers. So the same thing, if you look at it, there are three pillars relating to agreement on agriculture. So first one is elimination of trade distorting domestic support. The agreement on agriculture aims at eliminating trade distorting domestic support to its farmers. So every member countries have to remove trade distorting domestic support. Domestic support means subsidies which are given to farmers, which affects the trade. Now I'll give you an example. Let's say a farmer is given subsidies on seed, on fertilizer, etc. If the government gives these subsidies to the farmers, don't you think the cost of production for those farmers are going to reduce? Don't you think their cost of production, when it reduces, the product also becomes cheaper and it becomes more competitive in the international market? So don't you think this is distorting trade? Trade distorting, this I had explained to you, right? So domestic subsidies can make commodities more competitive, okay, and therefore it can distort trade. So those countries, farmers who do not get these subsidies, they will be at a disadvantage. Alva. So let's say country X, the farmers are getting subsidy. Let's say another country Y, they do not get subsidies. So don't you think X farmer has an advantage over Y farmer? And if they are supplying to country A, who will be able to supply more? Farmer belonging to X. So therefore it distorts trade. So this is the main objective of agreement on agriculture. What is it? Eliminate trade distorting subsidies. But not all subsidies given to farmers are trade distorting. So for this purpose, the agreement on agriculture puts these subsidies into three categories called as green box, amber box, and blue box. So the subsidies are classified into what all? The domestic subsidies given to the farmers. Let's take India. Indian farmers get subsidies from the government. So there are three types of subsidies the farmers can get. What are they? Green box subsidies, amber box subsidies, and blue box subsidies. So the green box subsidies are non-trade distorting subsidies. So those subsidies which does not directly affect trade. Please make that correction. So no, these subsidies do not affect trade directly. See, for example, subsidies given for improving rural roads. Okay, so rural development programs, these are also subsidies given to the farmers. Let's say farmers in India are going to get subsidized healthcare. Farmers' children are going to get subsidized education. Farmers are going to get housing. Farmers are going to get, extension programs where agriculture university is going to provide them information about agriculture. So these are all different types of subsidies which are mainly meant for what? Welfare. So they do not directly affect trade, and hence they are called as what? Non-trade distorting subsidies, and they are put into what? Green box. So these are non-trade distorting subsidies. So therefore, no reduction of these subsidies. There is no need for reduction of these subsidies. On the other hand, the amber box subsidies. On the other hand, the amber box subsidies are what? Trade distorting subsidies. Meaning, subsidies given on input. Subsidies given on input. Administered prices, MSP, minimum support price is also a subsidy. So here the farmers are directly benefited from it. So this is going to affect the productivity, and this in turn is going to affect trade. So these trade distorting subsidies has reduction commitment, has to be reduced by certain percentage. I'll see that number is okay. So it has to be reduced by certain percentage. Okay, we'll just have a look at it. By how much should they be reduced? See, just the first part you can write, and I'll explain to you that. So just imagine this situation. So what is supposed to be done is developed countries has to reduce these subsidies by how much? 20%. Developing countries should reduce it by how much? 13%. LDCs, no cuts. So if a developing country was giving 100 crore, like India is giving 100 crore, let's say, subsidies, how much should it reduce? It should reduce it by 13%. Let's say developed country was giving 100 crore. How much should it reduce? 20%. You got it? But for calculating this 100 crore, okay, that means if the government was giving 100 crore subsidies now, it should reduce it by 20 and 13% respectively for developed and developing country. So for calculating that, WTO members, okay, had to calculate how much support, that means how much subsidy was being given to agriculture during which year? 1986-88 level. Whatever subsidy a country was giving 86-88 level, that should be reduced to how much? By 20 and 13%. You understood? So if India was giving 100 crore during the year 1986-88 level, average rate of 2 years, that should be reduced by how much? 13%. Aita? So the aggregate measurement of support was calculated, AMS. So how much support was given from all sources were calculated. Other though, 13% should be reduced if you are a developing nation. Other though 20% should be reduced if you are a developed country. Okay, so you can write down that. So this is the target. You understood? So these are trade distorting subsidies. Hence, they should be what? Reduced. Blue box subsidies are those subsidies given by countries for programs called as production limiting programs being implemented in different countries. So government offers them subsidies to actually reduce production, meaning not to cultivate in certain pieces of land. For environmental reasons, don't cultivate. Let's say a farmer has 100 acres of land. So the government will say 5 acres of land, you leave it. Don't cultivate. For environmental purpose, you allow it to remain fallow. Okay, so that is called as what? Production limiting program. So subsidies given to farmers under production limiting program, also there is no need for reduction. So here also no need for reduction. Okay. So again, if I recollect, green box, no commitment. Amber box, commitment. Blue box, no commitment. Non-trade distorting subsidies, trade distorting subsidies, production limiting program subsidies. Next one is reduction of export subsidies. So export subsidies also can affect trade. It's also a type of non-tariff barriers. Agreed, all of you? So for export subsidies, also there are targets. Matlab, member countries who are giving export subsidies also there is a target. It has to be reduced. So the number is like this. Okay, so with respect to here, export subsidies, developed countries has to reduce it by 21% over 6 years, and developing countries has to reduce it by 10% over 10 years. Let's say India was giving 100 crores for agricultural exports. So it has to reduce it by 10% over 10 years. Then improving the market access. How can you import market access? Same thing, whatever we have discussed. How can you improve market access? By reducing tariffs and eliminating non-tariff barriers. So how can you reduce so there is a target here also. So reduce tariff. So developed countries should reduce their tariffs by 36% in 6 years. Developing countries should reduce it by how much? 24%. Let's say India is giving 10% customs duty, has a 10% customs duty on agricultural import. It has to reduce it by 24%. So it should reduce it by 2.4. So it should fix it at 7.6%. Alva. So that's the target. So this also benefits trade. So this is agreement on agriculture.